everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlene, and yes, it has been a while since I posted a video. No, unfortunately, this is not my official return to BookTube. And from In Search of Wonderland, I have been doing a year-long reading of Jane Austen's works in preparation for celebrating her 250th birthday in December. And we have done our live stream, so this is the last thing left for this year, and that is posting our ranking of all of Jane Austen's novels. Also, I guess before we actually get into the video, you're probably wondering, where have you been? Why were you gone so long? Why have you not come back? At least for any of you who have been around for a while, if you're new here, sorry that this is the first video you're getting. I did stop posting videos in June and have been on a break slash hiatus slash whatever you want to call it since then from YouTube. For the most part, the reason why I took the break is because I really felt this push to take a break. And so I thought I would just take at least a few months off. I didn't know for sure how long I would be gone, but I knew at least a few months. And my hope was to come back in September, and it's December, and obviously this is my first video, so that didn't happen. But the biggest reason why I haven't come back since then is because we have been dealing with a bit of a mishap in our kitchen. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen something from this. But we had a cabinet fall in our kitchen back in August, and we immediately started looking at replacing our cabinets. But with the time frame with when everything was going to arrive, it was going to be just after our 2-week trip to New England, which was in the first half of October. Then that would be pushing into getting things done around Thanksgiving, maybe even into December, and we didn't really like the idea of that. So we decided we were going to put it off until at least the new year, possibly even into the spring, because it was one cabinet that was down. We could do without it if we needed to. Then we did go on our vacation in October, and sometime in November, I don't remember exactly when, we got a mouse in our house, and we could not seem to catch this mouse for anything. So we went in and we ordered our cabinets. We went in, we started pulling cabinets out. We finally did catch the mouse, and yeah, basically upped our time frame. So now about half of my kitchen is gone as far as cabinets are concerned. And we have stuff stacked up in the dining room and wherever we can find space for it. So things are just kind of a mess right now. So at this point, I'm thinking it probably won't be until the spring that I might come back full time. I don't even know for sure if that will be the case, but that would be the earliest. Simply because we have renovation to do in the kitchen. We need to get the old cabinets out. We don't know how much we're going to have to do with the drywall, so that could get interesting. We got to get the new cabinets in. My cat is being noisy. Then we can finally measure and order the countertops, and it'll take about 4 to 6 weeks for them to get in. Then we have to have them installed. We are doing the cabinets ourselves, but we are not doing the countertops. So basically, it's going to be January or February before this is done. And there's no way that I'm going to go back to filming until that project is taken care of. So it's going to be a little while before I'm finally back to filming videos again on a regular basis. If you want to know what's going on with me, what I'm reading in the meantime, I am over on Instagram. It's always linked down in the description below. But that's really about the only place I'm posting as far as social media goes. I do have an account on Fable and Goodreads. You can follow me over there as well. Again, they're always linked down in the description. But unfortunately, I won't be posting on YouTube at least for the next few months. Which actually brings me to another very small announcement. I will be doing another video on this, so you will be getting 2 or 3 videos from me between December and January. But I know some people are probably going to have questions about the book club. Distant Lands Book Club is one that I started back in January. And every so often I get questions because I don't post on YouTube very often. And so people are wondering what's going on with the book club if I forget to post on Fable. And I will be doing an entire video on what my plans are for next year. But long story short, without going into all the details, the book club itself is going to go on hiatus next year. I had way too many books this last year that were, I have to read these books this month. I had the Distant Lands Book Club, I had a book club with my brother and sister-in-law, I had the Jane Austen Readalong, and I feel like I had other things at times as well. So I just kind of need a break from I have to read this book every month. and I'm going to be organizing a reading challenge based around the general idea of the Distant Lands Book Club, which is reading fantasy and sci-fi books. So I will have a video coming out about that. I don't know exactly when it'll come out after this video. I'm hoping within a day or two, but we'll see. But that's the short and sweet of it for now, because this video is already going to be long enough. Now, at the beginning of this year, I said that the only Jane Austen novel I had read in full was Pride and Prejudice. So all of these other novels were new to me as far as reading them in their entirety by Jane Austen. I had read some adaptations of a few of her books, and I had started Sense and Sensibility, but I didn't finish it. So I had no idea how I was ultimately going to rank these books. But if you do want to go back and watch the original video where I did do my original ranking and I answered some questions about Jane Austen's novels and Jane Austen herself, I will have that video linked down in the description below, and you can go check that out. I'm not going to insert clips of that video in this one, but I did go back and rewatch the video, and I do have listed out my original ranking prediction and also the star ratings that I predicted each book was going to have. So in that video, I listed out my star rating predictions first, and then the order in which I thought the books would rank after that. But in this video, I'm going to list them in their ranking order and then give the star rating with them and see how that compared with my predictions. However, I will be listing them from the one that ranked the lowest to the one that ranked the highest, because I think that's a more fun way to do it, and we also end on a more positive note. But before I get into the actual ranking, I do always have a cup of tea with me in my Jane Austen videos, because I feel like tea is more fitting for Jane Austen than coffee. And the tea that I have this time is a Winter Wonderland Rooibos from Simpson and Vail, which I am very upset with myself because we actually went on a trip to New England, and Simpson and Vail is based out of Connecticut, and I did not do any research to see if we were going to get close to their actual shop while we were on vacation. So I didn't get to go by their actual store, but I did buy this one earlier in the year, and I do really enjoy it. I forgot to bring it in here with me so I could list off the ingredients. But I will have the tea linked down in the description below if you want to go check it out. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so my original ranking prediction of Jane Austen's novels. I originally predicted that Lady Susan would be the book I liked the least. I had heard a lot about Lady Susan being an unlikable character, and I felt like I heard some people at least talk about not really liking the book, and so I thought that would probably be my lowest ranked one. Then Emma was next because I had read a couple adaptations of it and I really did not care for them, so I kind of figured that one would probably be ranked pretty low. Next I had Persuasion, then Mansfield Park, because Persuasion I knew a little bit about but not much, and Mansfield Park I knew nothing. So I was giving them the benefit of the doubt and kind of putting them in the middle. Then I had Northanger Abbey because I had read an adaptation of that one and loved it. But I was afraid of saying the novel would get the top spot and then have it rank lower. So I went ahead and put it in spot number 3. Then spots 2 and 1 were Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, because I had read Pride and Prejudice before and knew it pretty well. I'd also watched a couple adaptations, so that helped. And Sense and Sensibility, I had watched an adaptation of and loved it. So I figured there was a good chance that that book would rate pretty high. Now, did my rankings come out in the order that I thought they would? Absolutely not. Not a single book is in the spot that I predicted. There are some books where, like, these two books were in the same order that I thought they would be. These two books were in the same order I thought they would be. That's as close as it gets. Nothing was in the order I thought it would be. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. And I'm going to apologize to Anne now, because I'm pretty sure my lowest ranked book is one of her highest, if not her highest ranked book. So my lowest ranked is actually Persuasion. And the biggest reason why this one didn't land for me is because I felt like it was a little bit not really fitting the time period when the main character, Anne, is living with a very frivolous father and sister, and neither of them really care about her at all. So there's nothing going for her to be living at home. And yet she has held on to feelings for this one guy for 8 years. She hasn't really considered any other prospects. I feel like she might have had one other person propose to her and she turned him down, but I don't remember. But she really hasn't looked into any other prospects. It's just, I love this one guy and he was the only one I wanted and I turned him down, so I'm not choosing anybody else. And in her situation, it really didn't make sense. I will be honest, I read this book and I felt like this could very easily be almost semi-autobiographical for Jane Austen, because as far as we understand, it seems that there was a man that she fell in love with. Maybe he proposed to her, maybe he didn't, but she didn't end up marrying him. They ended up going their separate ways, and she remained single for the rest of her life. And so I felt like this book was almost her imagining someone in a similar situation to her, and if their story turned out differently, if they turned the guy down and then eventually they got to be with him anyway. And so for that, I can appreciate what she did. Also, this was published posthumously, so this may have been a story that she literally wrote for herself and never planned to publish. But in the fact that it was published, it doesn't seem to be a very smart idea for Anne that she turned this guy down and then basically pined for him for 8 years instead of looking for other options. So that was the main reason that I didn't care for this one. And also, I know a lot of people talk about loving Captain Wentworth, and I just didn't feel like we got a whole lot about him in this story. And maybe I missed something. I will be honest, the first time I read Pride and Prejudice, I gave it 3 stars. Either 3 or 3.5. And it's like, it was good. I liked it. I definitely didn't love it. And I have come to appreciate it so much more since watching a couple adaptations and rereading it and talking about it with people. So I almost get the feeling with Jane Austen's novels that if it's the first time I read the novel, I'm probably not going to rate it as highly as I would once I'm more familiar with the story and possibly also have more time to discuss it with other people. So that could be why this one ranked so low. Because that's the one thing in this ranking that I did notice. Every book that I read for the first time or experienced in full for the first time is on the bottom end of this ranking. So it could very well just be because it's the first time I read it, I just didn't get as much out of it. And I predicted I was going to give this book 4 stars, and I actually ended up giving it 3. But like I said, it could just be because of the fact that it's the first time that I read it. All right, then in the number 6 spot, I'm going to make somebody else who watches my videos not very happy, is Mansfield Park. And this one I had a hard time with because I enjoyed most of the novel. It was literally just the end of the book that brought it down for me. If the end of the book, if I had felt about it the way I did the earlier part of the book, it would probably be up at least 1 spot. The thing is, I don't think it was going to beat out the ones that are in the top 4 spots. It might have, but it would be a push. I could definitely say it would not have beat out my top 3. It would have been very hard for it to beat out my top 3. But it could have gone up at least 1 spot, maybe even 2. The biggest thing with this one is, and this was the hard part that I had because there were similarities between Mansfield Park and Persuasion. In that it's basically showing the main character being constant in their feelings towards whoever it is that they're interested in. So, and it's actually a point made in Persuasion, and I feel like it might have been a better point to make in Mansfield Park because this was a shorter term consistency rather than a very long-term one. The main character is very constant in her feelings for Edmund, despite his feelings for someone else and someone else proposing to her and all of that. The only reason the ending kind of let me down, and this is probably more of a modern reader perspective, is it made it very obvious that the reader is not supposed to be in favor of the guy who does propose to her. Because even after he proposes to her and says, you know, I will be a good husband to you and all of this, and seems to have changed, and me as the reader, I was questioning if he had changed. The fact that she just went, no, I don't have any feelings for him. I don't want to marry him. I have no interest. Basically shot that down and made me go, okay, we're not supposed to root for him. So I kind of wish that she would have at least considered it. Even if she didn't actually go through with it, if she had at least considered and wondered if he had changed, if this might be a good choice, I think it could have made the story more interesting. But that part just kind of made it obvious that we're not supposed to root for this person. So that's like the one thing in the story that really brought it down. Other than that, I really enjoyed the book and I thought it was a lot of fun. And Mansfield Park, I originally predicted would get a 4-star, and that's actually exactly what it got. I did do better with my star rating predictions than I did with my ranking predictions. All right, and then in spot number 5, this one was a hard one to place, but I went ahead and put Lady Susan here. And Lady Susan is a hard one to rank because all of the other books are full-length novels. Her first 4 books, the 4 that were published while she was still alive, are definitely the longest, and then the 2 that were published posthumously are quite a bit shorter. Probably about half the length of her other 4. But Lady Susan is a novella. So it's very short, very quick, and it's completely epistolary except for basically the epilogue. So it's very hard to try to compare this novella with all of her other novels. But going off of my star ratings, it made sense that this one ended up in the number 5 spot. So that's where I decided to put it. And this one I did really enjoy. Lady Susan is definitely an unlikable character, but you're not supposed to like her. The part that makes her scary is as you read her correspondence or you read correspondence of other people talking about her, the way she presents herself and the way she presents her version of things that have actually happened or why she did what she did. It makes you think that maybe she's just misunderstood and maybe other people are just talking about her. But then you read her correspondence to one of her friends and you realize, no, she's just as bad as what those people say. But she's manipulative in such a way that you, even as the reader, could fall for it if you weren't proven wrong by her own correspondence where she basically gives away the type of person she actually is. Which is very scary, but also sadly very realistic. And I really enjoyed the story overall. The only thing is that when you get to the epilogue, it basically says something to the effect of this can't really be wrapped up in letters. So you get a narrative basically saying, okay, this is what happened to everyone after where the letters stopped. And I kind of wish it would have just been a little bit longer to go ahead and wrap everything up with letters to keep that same format going. But yeah, she did decide to end it with a narrative. And in that regard, compared to the rest of the novella, it felt very rushed. So that's the main reason why it doesn't rank very highly. Now, as you can probably tell, most of these books, I really enjoyed them. Persuasion is the only one where I'm kind of iffy on. But the rest of these got 4 stars and above, so I really enjoyed them, which is what made ranking them so difficult. Now, Lady Susan, I thought I wasn't going to enjoy, so I predicted I was going to give this one 3 stars. In the end, I actually gave it a 4.5. So I was not close at all. I basically figured none of her books were probably going to get lower than a 3-star. So if you go within that 3-star range, I was not very close. Then in the number 4 spot, we have Sense and Sensibility. And like I said, I've seen an adaptation of this one. I did start it at one point. I didn't finish it. That was before I saw the adaptation. So I figured I was probably going to enjoy this one, and I did. One of the biggest things I got out of reading this book and also rereading Pride and Prejudice, since I've read it before and I've seen a couple adaptations, is just the realization of how much detail and information she goes into about society that really ties everything together and makes the whole thing make sense. And I also love her way of writing relationships, and there's so many good relationships in this book. So this was a very solid read for me. Really, the only reason that it doesn't rank higher is because I enjoyed the other 3 books more than this one, but I really didn't have any issues with this one. The only thing is, I predicted I was going to give this one a 5-star rating. For some reason on Fable, I gave it 4 stars. And I don't know why. I'm bumping that up to at least a 4.5 star. And I don't know why I didn't rate it at least that high to begin with. It probably could be a 5-star. But I feel like the other 3 stand out more. And so that's probably why I bumped it down a little bit. But why I bumped it all the way down to 4 stars, I have no idea. All right, now we're on to my top 3, and these were the ones that were a bit more difficult to rank. because they were all 5-star reads. So in the number 3 spot, I went ahead and put Pride and Prejudice. As much as I enjoyed this book, the other two I enjoyed even more. Again, I've read this book before. I know the story pretty well. I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading this. I love the humor in this book. I love the characters. I do enjoy the BBC adaptation of this book more than the Keira Knightley adaptation. But having watched the Keira Knightley one more recently as part of this read-along, I was struck again with the amount of detail she puts into this book that has to do with society that really ties it all together. And there's a lot of things that they left out of the movie that have to do with that. And so compared to the book, things feel like they come out of left field. Whereas if you read the book, you can kind of see some of these things coming because she adds in all of that extra detail so that when it does happen, you go, oh yeah, that's what was going on with all of this. So yeah, I will definitely take the book over the Keira Knightley adaptation. It's not a bad adaptation for a movie, but the miniseries definitely does a better job because you get so much more detail. And yes, I predicted I would give this one 5 stars, and I absolutely did. All right, my top 2 spots. I am having a hard time with these because honestly, I want to put them both in the number 1 spot. And I have been hemming and hawing around these two for weeks. At least it feels like weeks. It's been weeks because I read the last of the 2 in November. And so ever since I finished that one, I've been hemming and hawing around. Is it going to get the number 1 spot? Does it go to number 2? I really can't decide. So we're just going to cheat and say that they tie for the number 1 spot because I really can't decide which one should rank higher. So the first one we're going to talk about is Northanger Abbey. Yes, I predicted this one would be in the number 3 spot because I was trying to be nice and not just assume it would go to the number 1 spot. I should have just assumed it would go to the number 1 spot because it's definitely one of my 2 favorite novels by her. I just absolutely loved this book. I do not like the Thorpes, but you're not supposed to, so that's fine. But I love Mr. Tilney. I love Catherine. I love the gothic vibes and then the way that she twisted, and it's like you basically turns into you've been reading way too many gothic novels. Just I loved so many things about this book. I love the different types of friendships in this book. Catherine with Miss Thorpe and then with Miss Tilney. I love the exploration of both of those friendships and how they both turned out. Just so many things I loved about this book. And it really doesn't seem right to not make it my number 1 book. But I have a hard time not making Emma my number 1 book either. And I think the biggest reason why I want to make Emma rank a little bit higher than Northanger Abbey is because this was such a surprise for me. I predicted that this would be ranked number 7, that it would rank last for these books. And it's tied for the number 1 spot. I thought I would give it 3 stars. I gave it 5. I loved this book. It was so much fun. I laughed out loud so many times while reading this book. And I knew the story because I had read a modern adaptation of it. I had read the graphic novel adaptation. I had seen Clueless and I had seen the 2020 adaptation of this. I did enjoy the movies more than the book adaptations, but I still was uncertain that I was actually going to enjoy it when I read it in book form. I was starting to think maybe it's something I enjoy as a movie, or maybe would even enjoy as a miniseries, but not as a book. I was so wrong. I looked forward to every part of this book and thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. And I am so sorry that I ever said anything bad about this book because I loved it. And yeah, I can't decide between this book and Northanger Abbey which one should actually be number 1. So we're going to cheat and just say that they tie. And then I don't have to choose and feel bad about the one I put in second place. All right, so that wraps up my ranking of the Jane Austen novels. I did have fun reading all of these this last year. Although I will say, for me, that is a lot of books by one author in a single year. I typically need a bit of a break between books by the same author like a month or two off where I'm not reading books by them. And I didn't get that much of a break this year. So it was a bit harder for that reason. And I did end up listening to some of these on audiobook because I just needed that little extra push to get through the books. Because while I wanted to read them and I was enjoying them, it was a lot for me. So I made it through. I finished all of the novels and thoroughly enjoyed most of them, and at least enjoyed my time reading the others, even if I didn't love them. So if you have read all of Jane Austen's novels, let me know how your ranking compares, and you are 100% free to disagree with me. I know people who love all of these books and would rank them completely different than I did. So do not worry about hurting my feelings. You won't. Unless you're just rude about it. Which you won't hurt my feelings, you'll just annoy me. So, just don't be rude. That's all I ask. If you haven't read all of Jane Austen's novels, you can feel free to just let me know how you felt about the ones you did read. And if you haven't read Jane Austen, maybe why you haven't read her yet and don't plan to, or which ones you would like to get to. Like I said, I am hoping to have another video out a day or two after this one. It just mostly depends on how quickly I can get these videos edited. But other than that, I have to remember my outro again. It's been a while. I hope you'll have a wonderful day. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and give you peace. I'll see you later.